Well, hello again everybody. Hopefully today we're going to be finishing off this COBRA 21LTD, and we've got some bits and bobs which should help us do that. I'm afraid it might be slow going today because it's absolutely red hot here in the UK. It's about 30 degrees, it's a Tuesday, and apparently it's going to get even hotter as the week progresses. So I'm very hot and sticky and slightly bad tempered, but we'll carry on regardless. So the first thing that I bought was some power cables, and I'm hoping that these are going to fit the radio because well, I didn't have any, and it was only a matter of time before we actually blow something up by bodging cables on. So let's just see if we can actually do that. Will these cables fit? So I got some that have got 2 pins, 2 wires. Well, the other one's got 2 wires as well, but the connector's actually a 3-pole connector, and I'm hoping that this is the one that will fit the radio, so hopefully it will. Is it going to go in there? I think it will. It doesn't seem a fantastic fit. Will that? Oh yep, you can force that in. If it doesn't fit, just force it. Well, it's got to be better than... that's quite a tight connection, that. That's got to be better than just soldering bits of wiring, hasn't it? But let's just make sure. This is just a cheap cable from China, so we better just check it is polarised correctly, because that could end horribly, couldn't it, if it's not? So that should be the ground connection. Yep, and let's just check the positive. And that seems fine. That's a lot better. So we can remove these bodge wires that we put in earlier now, because hopefully we're not going to need them. So of course it's only going to be a matter of time before I'm going to end up plugging in these the wrong way around and maybe blowing up one of these CB radios. So I've got a bit of room here. I was thinking of installing a 2-pin polarised connector, so that when I plug these CB cables in, I will put a matching connector on this end of the cable, and that way I can be sure I don't actually get things crossed over or plugged in the wrong way. So what do you think of that as an idea? You people who repair CB radios and other radio equipment, have you ever thought about that? You know, have you ever plugged in a radio the wrong way around? Because of course you've only got to do it once before you're in a world of poo, aren't you? And of course the other thing is, because I run this equipment from a variable power supply, you always run the risk of having done some job before, and you know the power supply is set to 24 volts rather than 12, and that's going to give you a bad day as well. But the reason I like to use a bench power supply with an adjustable variable one is because, one, it has an adjustable current limit on it, and 2, you've got the meters on it so you can see your voltage and current. So of course it's much better to power things up and, you know, see what current they're drawing. I haven't seen a lot of fixed 12 volt power supplies that have that feature to have current limiting on them. Maybe they're available, in honesty I haven't looked. Of course I do have fixed 12 volt power supplies. This one has got a Yaesu cable on it for powering up my, I think it's a Yaesu 897 in fact. But the problem with this is it will put out 23 amps if it wants to, so if you're plugging in a radio that's possibly faulty, you don't want to put 23 amps up it. So yeah, I just thought that might be an interesting topic for the comments. What you think, any suggestions of perhaps the best and safest way to do it. So I'm sure you'll remember that just the other day we converted the COBRA radio to use an LED in the signal strength meter, and I actually took out the original bulb because it is blown, and unfortunately I've thrown that away. It would be handy to have it. Now it appears that when you order these grain of wheat bulbs, there's actually 2 sizes. There's a 3mm size and there's also a 5mm size, and I've gone ahead and I've bought them both. I've got 10 here. I've got 10 of the 3mm. The 5mm ones haven't arrived yet because I ordered them directly from China. Let's give that a go. And they light up quite nicely, don't they? It's not as bright as I thought they'd be. They must actually have quite a low filament temperature, these, and it actually is quite a yellowy light. It's actually almost an orange light, that one, but I know quite a few of you have expressed a preference for this type of lamp rather than the glaring blue LED. I don't mind the blue LED, but certainly if we replace probably one of these bulbs, sorry I keep calling it bulbs, if I replace one of these lamps in the future, just to keep it authentic, we'll put one of these grain of wheat bulbs in. Anyway, we'll have to double check what the size is. I don't know if it should have been 3mm or 5mm, but we've got them both coming anyway. Well, I've got a mystery tool here that's come all the way from Houston, Texas. Now, it was actually Mike's radio repair. It was Mike that actually inspired me to buy this, because I saw that he was using one of these on his channel. So I'm just going to put it there a few seconds, and no cheating. Does anybody know what this is? It's definitely not a sonic screwdriver, although maybe you're not far off the mark. Well, what this is, oh god, I've forgotten. No, I do know. It's a toggle switch driver, although I'm not sure they do call it a toggle switch driver. I think they actually call it something like a fret key driver, because they use it on guitars to tighten up the thumb screws, well, the assembly of the thumb screw. So what you can do is you can close this up, and it's got little fingers here, little metal fingers, and they close up. Well, what I've bought it for is, again, in theory, we can use this to get toggle switches off. But having just looked at it, these come in multiple sizes, and well, I ordered the only size that I could find on Amazon. But now, having looked at it, it does actually look as though it might be a little bit too big for what I actually need. Although, I don't know, there might be two positions. Is that going to close up? It might also just be a little bit stiff, and it's so hot in here, my hands are swaying. So I've got a toggle switch here, and you can see that it's got this, I don't know, I'll call it a screw-on bezel, but basically it's a retaining nut that goes through a front panel, and you know, it keeps a switch in the panel. It's it's a retaining nut. Now, the idea of this is you can use this to remove that knurled nuts, because these knurled nuts can be very difficult to get pairs of pliers on them, or any tools. These can be very tight. So quite often people will end up trying to get a pair of pliers on this, and you end up scratching the face of the radio or whatever you're working on. Now, the idea of this tool is that it should be able to grab that bezel, it should be able to clamp onto it and actually undo it. Well, that's the idea anyway. So if I push that on there, and actually this actually might be it. Is that going to open up? Oh, there you go. So you can push this on there like that, you tighten up this ring, and now I can actually have some purchase on that and actually get it undone. Now, I've got to admit, I'm not exactly sure how much adjustment range you'll have here. Let me see if I can find another switch, try it on something else. So I've just found another toggle switch. This one's got a smaller ring on it, so let's see if it'll tighten up. Kind of feel as though it's a bit hard to hold all these things at once. Now, I'm sure none of you are going to let me forget that the first thing I actually did with this COBRA 21 was to rip off the microphone gain knob. Oops, silly me. So what I did is I've gone ahead and I bought some new 5K pots. So hopefully these will be reasonable replacements for the one that we destroyed. And because I was at work when I ordered these, there's a couple of different styles, and I didn't know which one to buy, but they were only, I think they're only about £1 each or something, so I got a couple of different styles here. So one's got a slightly longer control shaft on them than the other. There they are. So you can see that this second potentiometer that I bought has got a longer operating shaft on it, because of course there's only times when a longer shaft will do. and it looks like a 0 BA nut spanner has just come to my rescue there. Well, it looks like I did the right thing to buy the longer shaft version, because certainly that does look like the size that we need. Let's just check it fits the control knob, which it does. The only difference is that this has got tabs on it, and these are designed for PCB mounting, so they're not exactly the same, but beggars can't be choosers. These were all I could buy on eBay when I bought them. Maybe I should have looked a bit harder to see if there was any that were, I don't know, that got the mounting tabs on, but I'm sure I can solder some wires onto here. So in fact, that's what I'm going to do. We may as well go ahead and refit this control. I'll go ahead and do that now. And because these are designed for PCB mounting, I've gone ahead and I'm just going to put a little bit more strain relief on the actual cable here. So I've just cut some heat shrink and I'm going to just slip that over it. Well, there we go, we've got a new pot installed. So what we've actually got here is some new 7-segment dual displays, and I'm really hoping that they are going to be the correct pin-out, because obviously there's quite a lot to choose from. Having said that though, a lot of them are actually obsolete these days. The actual original part that went in this radio, it was obviously obsolete many years ago, and I had to look through some data sheets, and I'm really hoping that this will be the equivalent size and it actually fits. So this is the original 7-segment display that I removed, and there is a couple of differences. So this one here appears to have some kind of, well, I'm going to say it's almost got like a little plastic potting case round it, kind of a grey translucent material, so that's one difference. This one has just got a plain grey front on it, but I've also just noticed that this one has got 2 decimal points on it. So, you know, have I made a boob? When I looked on the data sheet, it didn't show these decimal points. I'm absolutely certain of it, but actually they are on here. Could I have got it wrong? Well, should we try and do a comparison before we install it? I guess we should really, shouldn't we? Make sure I haven't got it wrong. Yeah, let's do that. So I don't think we'll check all the pins, so let's just check each end. So middle bar, and let's check the other side. Top right. Middle bar. Middle bar. Bottom right. Bottom right. I think that was correct. So here's our replacement 7-segment display, and I've just got to sit it on this backboard, and I'm just going to pray that we've got it the right way around, because let's face it, it could go either way. Let's just make sure it's sat down right. So we might actually have to install this kind of little right angle riser card in 2 stages, because it actually fixes onto the front panel, and it also solders to this board, and I'm sure there will be a sequence to install it such that when we tighten up the actual screws at the end, we don't try and bend the solder joints from where they actually naturally want to be. Just a couple of iffy looking joints here. What a magnificent solder bridge. I think I should get extra points for that. Well, I guess the question you've got to ask yourself is, do you feel lucky?
Well, do you, punk?
Back of the net. Now, one thing that is immediately obvious is that this new modern display is being probably 30 years younger and a big increase in LED technology in that time. The LED segments are an awful lot brighter. I think it might look a bit blurred on the camera. In real life it looks very sharp, but it's certainly very bright. Now, of course, it wouldn't exactly be rocket science to go back and remove this board and you know, change some of the dropper resistors so that we could dim the display down a little bit, make it maybe a little bit more acceptable. But I think we're getting into realms of gilding the lily there, aren't we? So I've already scraped off a lot of the glue. When I remove some of this capacitors, I can see one over here, which I don't know if that's like incoming smoothing or something. Quite a big capacitor. I can see that that's got some brown goo on the side of it. So we're going to have to get rid of some of that corrosive brown goo. But I've actually scraped it off from a lot of the other places within the chassis. So just the stuff that's run under the capacitors now. So let's start off by pulling one of these capacitors out, and we will. I think we'll measure the ESR. We'll see what it's like. Oh, I think I was a bit premature with my suck there, wasn't I? Bit too eager to start getting sucked. Oh, I can actually see one of these capacitors was actually loose. I can see the leg wobbling. I haven't even tried to desolder it yet. Now, just for shits and giggles, let's check the ESR and the capacitance still remaining in these old fellas. So here's a brand new 1000 microfarad capacitor, and it says 1000 microfarad, and our ESR is 0.08 ohms. 0.08 ohms. Remember that, because I'll forget. Let's see what this one is. So this one's 1050, and it's 0.1 ohms. Well, that's not actually a million miles out. That could be a lot worse, couldn't it? It's only 0.2 of an ohm bigger than the original one. I mean, the capacitors are a little bit higher, but I would have thought that's still within tolerance for an electrolytic. Although, of course, quite often these electrolytics do increase in value as they start to age. But I think that would be within tolerance at 1050. So that one's not too bad. Let's try this next one. The next one is 470 microfarad, so let's try the modern equivalent. That comes out just under 460, and that's 0.1 ohm. Try the old fella. Oh, right, okay, got a big difference there. 2 ohm and 89 microfarad. So that should be 470 microfarad. So we're doing the right thing to replace these capacitors. You know, you always measure a few, and you quite often get some good readings, and you think, shall I change them, shall I not? Well, that's proved the point. The fact we've got one which is, you know, a quarter of its value and 2.2 ohms, orders of magnitude are higher in ESR and reduced in capacitance. That really is just a good example of why we're changing them. Let's try this little fella what's he, 47. Try a modern one first. .46 at 0.3 ohm. 16 microfarad and 19.6 ohms for ESR. So again, orders of magnitude out there. So that's why we're changing these capacitors. I always think the question remains though, will the radio work any better after this? I mean, you'd really hope it would, wouldn't you? I think it's better to use flux for two reasons. It cleans the board, and obviously that helps you make a good joint, but the second reason is the fact that it has cleaned the board will make sure it takes the solder a little bit faster, and that means in turn we're less likely to damage these rather cheap and nasty circuit boards. They're not particularly well built. Well, I don't think there's a lot of benefit from you watching me solder all these, so I'm going to replace all these capacitors, and I'm also going to touch up some of these solder joints that I can see are standing very proud. So while I'm in here, we're going to address that as well, and hopefully I will bring you back when I've done that, and we'll start thinking about the alignment.